In this movie, I'll show you how to adjust the saturation of an image using an adjustment layer known as vibrance. So where this image is concerned, I need to increase the saturation of the colors. And you can do so either by dropping down to the black and white circle at the bottom of the layers panel and choosing the vibrance command. Or if you want to name the layer as you create it, go ahead and bring up the adjustments panel here and press the Alt key or the Option key on the Mac and click on this last icon in the top row, the one that looks like a V. And that will bring up the new layer dialog box, at which point you can name the layer anything you want. I'm calling mine Saturate, and then go ahead and click OK. Now notice that we have two sliders right here. I'm going to go ahead and move this fish over a little bit so we can keep track of them. The saturation slider allows you to increase the saturation of all the colors inside the image. And as a result, we're making the image look quite garish indeed. Or you can reduce the saturation of all the colors. And if you take that saturation value all the way down to -100, you're going to end up with a grayscale image, as we're seeing here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and set the saturation value to 0 so we can see vibrance. Now, what vibrance does is it saturates colors according to their needs. So if we're working with low saturated colors in the first place, then cranking up vibrance will increase the saturation of those low saturation colors. So anything that starts low saturation will become more saturated. Compare that to what happens if I go ahead and zero out this value and I crank up the saturation value for a moment, and then I take the vibrance value down. I am now reducing the vibrance of the most saturated colors. And notice that just leaves the least saturated colors in place. So let me go ahead and take saturation down to 0, and I'll leave vibrance at -100 for a moment. And I want you to notice this detail right there. See this little yellow detail? Notice when I increase the vibrance value all the way to +100, it remains unchanged, and that's because it is the least saturated color inside this image. So where this image is concerned, I ultimately decided to crank the vibrance value all the way up to +100 because in real life, this is a very colorful fish. And I took the saturation value up to +30. And so while the colors are looking pretty darn garish, they're actually very accurate as well. And now I'll go ahead and hide the properties panel, and I'll press Control-0 or Command-0 on the Mac in order to center the image on screen. All right, now if you want even more saturation, then here's another trick you might try. Go up to the Edit menu and choose Assign Profile. And what Photoshop is going to do is grouch at you about how this is going to change the appearance of the image. That's what we want, so go ahead and click OK. And then go ahead and select this Profile Radio button right there. And the profile we're looking for is Adobe RGB 1998. And now notice if I turn the Preview checkbox off, this is the way the image looked before we assigned the profile, and this is the way it looks now. So we're adding just a little bit of a panache of saturation there, at which point I'll go ahead and click OK in order to accept that change. All right, now let's say we want to correct an image that has a little bit too much saturation. I'll go ahead and switch over to this image right here, and notice that this woman's face looks just too darn orange. So what I'm going to do is bring up my adjustments panel once again, and then I'll Alt-click or Option-click on the vibrance icon, and I'll just call this layer Skin Tones, let's say, and click OK. And now notice that I could increase the vibrance if I wanted to make her face even more orange, but what I want to do is take that vibrance value down, and notice if I take it all the way down to -100, we still have some colors left over, these low saturation colors in the background, but we've removed just about all the saturation from the model's face. Now that's a cool effect, but it's not really what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and take that vibrance value up to, let's say, -20 in order to produce this more subtle effect right here. And then I'll hide the properties panel to get it off screen. And just so we can see what we've done, I'll turn that vibrance layer off for a moment. This is the original version of the photograph, and then if I turn it back on, this is the image as it appears with more natural skin tones. And that's how you use a vibrance adjustment layer, either to slightly desaturate an image or to crank the saturation values through the roof right here. And I'll just demonstrate what a difference it makes. This is the original version of that photograph, and this is how it appears now, thanks to our ability to magnify saturation values using a vibrance adjustment layer here inside Photoshop.